All right, welcome back today. For everybody who's watching on live on twitch.tv/darkest_mage or watching it on YouTube. We are going to be doing the rares today. Rares, the gold, and the mystical archive. So let's go ahead and get started. We have Devastating Mastery, which is 2 and white, so 6 mana total. Destroy all non-land permanents, and you can pay 4, and you can have your opponent return 2 of their permanents to their hand instead of destroying them. I'm not a huge fan of these types of effects in sealed at all, especially with this such a massive mana cost, and especially in a format where I think this is probably going to be a 3-color format. I think you're pretty unlikely to be playing this card. Yeah, I'm kind of not. Planar Cleansing was 3 white, right? And I never really played that one either in sealed. I don't know how good the 2 white cost. I think there's a cycle of these. Yeah, Planar Cleansing, just run on lands. Yeah, it's even harder to cast than that. Not a fan. I don't know if I actually ever played Planar Cleansing. I might. It's a good sideboard card for sure. Your opponent has like some planeswalkers you can't kill, or they have like some Oblivion Ring effects, which I didn't even see if there were any in this format. I don't think there are any, which may be why white is so heinous. It has no removal, but I'll put this as a 3. I'm assuming that it's not that it's filler. It's just you're so unlikely to play it. It's powerful enough to not be a 2, but you're so unlikely to play it. Elite Spellbinder, flying, 3/1 for 3, 2 and a white. Here's a battlefield, look at target opponent's hand, you may exile an online card from it. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. Okay, so they have a 4-card drop in their hand. When you play this, you exile it, and they have to pay 6 to do it. Okay. Oh, this is their Paulos card. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing white, you always play it. I don't think you splash for this. It's not going to turn 6. That's kind of the definition of a thing that you're splashing for. You're generally splashing for like 2 or 3 cards of another color, and you have like 4.5, 5 sources, and you're going to have those sources by turn 6 about 80% of the time, so turn 6 is the one that you want to do it on, and this is, by turn 6, they've already kind of cast everything that should be good against. But obviously, if you're playing it in your deck, it's good. I like that it, like, even if they kill it, you know, the card still stays exiled, and you have to pay 2 more to do it, right? So it doesn't have to stay in play for its ability. Good stat line for limited. 3 power flyer for 3 is certainly quite good. And looking at your opponent's hand is certainly good as well. Whenever you cast in a copy or copy and center free spell, creatures you control get +1/+1. Yeah, this card's really good. Yeah, this card's good. It's going to play like or pretend to be a 3/3 a lot of the time. Threat of activation is going to be worth a lot. Like if you play Lean and Light Scribe on turn 2 and your opponent plays a 2/2 and you attack on turn 3, are they blocking? Probably not. Even if you don't even have anything, they're probably not going to block it. Yeah, it's a 9. I don't think it got 1 games by itself. You think it's close? I mean, if the copy cards were good, I could see it. You know, that there was a plethora of copies of spells. There was one actually in the uncommon slot for white, right? Was it a Show of Confidence? So if you play like a cheap instant or sorcery, then Show of Defiance, all your creatures get +3/+3. That's pretty good. And plus you get 2 counters, and they get Vigilance. It's still a combination of 3 different cards for that effect, which, I don't know. Who knows if we could have just won that game any other way. I mean, it's at least an 8. It's either an 8 or a 9 for sure. Exile Selfless. This is a 2-part card. Front and a back. Exile Selfless Glyph Weaver. Creatures you control gain indestructible to turn. Cool. It's like a Selfless Savior. That's cool. This used to be a 3-cost green-white rare. It was like Dauntless something. Or also Selfless Spear was a 2-cost 2-1 flyer that also did it. So this effect has been done before, but the real part of it is the Deadly Vanity part, which is choose a creature or planeswalker, then destroy all other creatures and planeswalkers. Now, one downside of this is if you don't have any, you have to choose your opponent's creatures. So that it's not like a strict wrath. You do actually have to have something. Although obviously you can try to give your opponent like a 2/2 at the end or whatever. But reminds me a lot of a card that was a bomb in the past. It's called Doom Blast. And that was the best card in the format. For the format that it was in. Which is choose up to one creature, destroy the rest. That costs 7. This costs 8. Which is a lot more than 7, for sure. And it's also harder to cast. White, black, green is easier to get than black, black, black. But, yeah, this is at least a 9. This is very different than the Devastating Mastery card. Like, being able to save your own creature means, like, you don't actually have to hold all your stuff back. Like you do for Devastating Mastery. Like, you can have, like, a 5/5 or 6/6, and just, like, you just play the game normally. Then you don't mind, like, sacrificing your, like, 2/2 or 3/3 that you have, and keep your 6/6, and your opponent loses everything, right? That's so different than having to also lose your 6/6 if you play Devastating Mastery. And plus, Devastating Mastery is even harder to cast. The quad white. And this also has the front side, which is it's a perfectly fine card on the front side. I'm not gonna say this is a 10. Quite yet, because I haven't really seen too many ways to actually draw cards in this format. So, you know, previous format had a lot of 3-drops that all drew cards, like Horizon Seeker, and they had like Ceros Packmate and Spirit of the Elder Guard, or the format of 0/4 Bear. Like there were a ton of ways to draw cards, so like getting to 8 mana is a totally reasonable thing to be doing. But having looked at all the commons and uncommons, I haven't really seen that many ways to actually draw cards. It means the odds of you having 8 mana, the turn you're gonna have it is like turn 10, which is like, yeah, I don't know. That's how realistic that is. Is the front side a 9? No, the front side's like a 7.5, 8. I mean, it's a card you would always play. I mean, that's typically the ratings kind of get a little bit murky when it comes to rares, because rares, if they're on color, you're always gonna play them. A question you might ask is, like, if I'm a black-red deck, do I play Selfless Glyph Weaver just for the Deadly Vanity side? Maybe splash a Plains if you can, or like a red-white dual land or so. Probably you would. You would probably play just Deadly Vanity, assuming that your deck is capable of drawing cards and being able to get to the point where you could actually cast this. But if you're playing like a 15 or 16 land deck, no. Although I'm not sure why you would run 15 or 16 lands in sealed. I'm just saying. The more mana you have in your deck, the better this card is. Semester's End. Exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control at the beginning of your next end step. Return each of them to the battlefield under its owner's control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional count. Okay, so yeah. It's like flicker any of your dudes or dudettes, and they get a counter. That's kind of... I'm not impressed. I'm not even sure I'll play this. It's a really good sideboard card for sure. If your opponent has a lot of removal spells, or they have some sort of freezy effects. Get some surprise block. Oh, no, it's not even a surprise blocker, but it's not flicker, but they come back and end its turn step. I mean, it's technically a flicker. Is that what the original... Isn't that what the original flicker did? I don't remember. The OG flicker, why we call them flicker effects. It was a rare at the start. It says... No, it did it immediately. Then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Did it immediately. Yeah, I'm not impressed by this. This reminds me of, was it Ghostway? Yeah, it was Ghostway. Exile each creature you control, return those creatures to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So, the Ghostway was unplayable. So, obviously, Semester's End is maybe a little bit better, but it's not all of them. And they do come back with a counter, but you do have to pay 1 mana for that. Yeah, I'm not on board with that. Poor white. Shale, Dean of Radiance, Flying Vigilance, tap, put a counter on each creature in the battlefield under your owner's control. Okay, cool. 2 cost 1/1 flyer. With that ability, that's really good. Reminds me of Mikaeus. Mikaeus was a bomb back in the day. Yeah, Mikaeus and Lunark. But you could play it on turn 2, and then it had to put a counter on it. So, like, it only worked every other turn, but this is arguably probably better than Mikaeus. Then we have the other side. 2 black, 4/4. Tap, put a counter on another target creature. Then Ambrose deals 2 damage to that creature. So you can, like, Skull Clamp. Because then whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, draw a card. So it's like a... You can Skull Clamp your smaller creatures, although I don't know how many 1/1s are going to be playing. And the ability is surprisingly not sorcery speed. Oh, you can target your opponent's creatures, which is weird. Yeah. They don't draw a card though, because it says whenever a creature you control with the +1/+1 counter dies. So, yeah, you could target your opponent's creatures and kill their X1s, or essentially deal 1 more damage to them. It can't grow large because this is another creature, so he can't punch himself in the face to get stronger. Yeah, I mean, it seems good. You can grow large creatures. I don't know if you consider like a 1/2 a large creature, because that's as big as you need to be to get bigger. But as long as you're not an X1, you get bigger. I mean, it's at least a 9. It's at least a 9. For bombs, for 10s, I would say it has to be. It can't just die to a terminate. Like both halves of this card just die to a terminate, so it's not a 10. It's a high 9, but I mean it does just die. I mean you have to kill it immediately, because if they stick around for 1 turn, there's a chance that they're gonna put a counter on something, right? And you would play this card either half. If you're like black, red, or white, green, you would play this card. So both halves are quite good. Sparring Regiment. Enters the battlefield. Learn. Okay. Whenever you attack, put a counter on target attacking creature and untap it. This card is really good. This might be a 10. This might be a 10. Because you can't just terminate this as an enchantment. It's also a card advantage because it learns. And it kind of has haste because you can use it immediately. Granting vigilance is it's quite powerful. It's also like the fact that it learns is, yeah, it's like a splashable. I mean, it's not Starnheim Unleashed level like it was, or Coma level in the last format. Yeah, if you attack with 4 creatures, you only get 1 counter. As far as that's what it looks like to me. I don't think it's I mean, it's not like the level of 10s in the previous format, but I think it's probably the level of Esca's Chariot in the previous format, and that was like a top 5 card, and that was a 10 out of 10. So, yeah, I think this is a 10. It's like a little bit worse than Esca's Chariot. It's not that much worse. That's impressive. This is the best white card we've seen. The other cards, the black cards, are much more impressive. The black halves, I think, are much more impressive. But this is the actual only white card I've seen that's like, okay, this is actually an impressive Magic card. A worse top deck? No, because you learn. Like, there's a ton of lessons that do something, that make creatures. If you're playing white, you're gonna have a creature in play. Flying, 2 cost, 1/3 flyer. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger. Counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. This doesn't seem... I mean, you probably play this. Yeah, it's symmetric. And it'll stop learn creatures, right? It'll stop, like Professor of Symbology. You wouldn't get the learn, but you wouldn't, off spells that learn, you would still get those. There's not really much to go into Delvin. It's like, the scenarios are unique. If it doesn't hurt you, you should play it. If it does hurt you, you probably shouldn't play it. I'll put it as a 4. Yeah, it doesn't stop Magecraft, but it just it has to deal with permanents. Yeah, I don't think it's Concordia Pegasus with upside. Because Concordia Pegasus with downside you would never play. And I have a feeling this might be more downside than upside. Mavinda, Student's Advocate. 3 cost, 2/3 flyer. You may cast 0. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. The spell doesn't target a creature you control. It costs 8 more to cast in this way. And then exile it. And you can only use this ability once per turn. Okay, so you can flashback any of your instants of sorceries. You can flashback for their mana cost if they target one of your things. Or you can pay 8 more to target one of your opponent's things. I do like comments on this card, which are pretty funny, where you ask him to, like, hey, can you help me lightning bolt this creature, that student over there? And he's like, I'm really not supposed to be bolting the students. And so he's like, you have to give him an extra large, like, okay, fine, but what if I offer you 8 more? And you're like, okay. On the flip side of that, it's just like, I'm really not supposed to be killing other students. And like, no, I'm gonna get your students. Like, oh yeah, I hate my students. Yeah, you get rid of them. I don't have a problem with that. Here you go. So, relatively funny. This works really well with fight effects. Because fight effects target both your creature and your opponent's creatures, so it doesn't go into this. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't oppose a good brawl. It feels like it's obviously, like, the artwork I think is really cool, and I like the effect, and I'm glad that white's getting this. Yeah. This is like a 9, maybe even a 10. This is really good. In white green, it's a 10. But it's so likely for this, you can just play this for 5 or 6 mana, and just like play it, and then immediately use it to fight something, right? Rebuy one of your fight spells. So it's at least a 9. The fact that it is a creature and it can just die, although again, if your opponent kills it, like if you play this on the same turn as you're going to use it, your opponent killing it won't stop it. It is really good. Stat line is great too. 3 cost, 2/3 flyer. Good on turn 3. I'm still not convinced on this, like, 8 additional more. Like, there seems to be like a little bit of a sub theme of things that cost like 8, and I find it. I think it's going to be kind of hard to get to 8 mana. I didn't really see any 2-for-1s, like things that produce 2 mana, other than Gritting Ignis in red, and that's an uncommon, right? I didn't really see a way to really get that sort of stuff done, but we'll see. Maybe the idea of learning for that 2 colors, like learning for the lesson, environmental sciences, maybe that's just like, that's how people get to 8 mana, is that they just like, you're going to open 1 or 2 of these and you're just always going to search for it. Maybe. Not sure. Myla, Crafty Companion. Whenever an opponent attacks one or more Oh, Planeswalkers, who cares? That doesn't have it unlimited. Whenever a opponent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. Well, that's really good. That was on the Mammoth in the previous set, and that card was a 10. The spell or ability, too. And it's permanence. It doesn't just protect your creatures. Yeah, Battle Mammoth was the name of the card. Oops. Yeah, Battle Mammoth. Was it the same thing? Yeah, Battle Mammoth was permanent as well. But it was a giant creature, so it actually ended. This one is not a giant creature. So I'm not sure I would make this a 10. It's close. It's close. Maybe it's a 10. You look at the backside. Luca, Wayward Bonder, 6-cost Planeswalker, 4 red. You may discard a card if you do draw a card. If a creature card was, so if you discard it, you can discard a non-creature, discard 1. Non-creature to draw 1 card. If you discard a creature, draw 2. Okay. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile at the beginning. Okay, that's kind of medium. You get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Okay, well, that's kind of a weird. It's kind of a weird planeswalker. It's not very powerful. Can't defend itself. Costs 6. It's just like a card draw, not even necessarily a card draw planeswalker, because you have to discard creatures. Otherwise, you're just rummaging, right? Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. It says return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield against haste. Exile at the beginning of the next upkeep. Not end step. Okay. So I can like rebuy like a 4/4 from my graveyard, and it sticks around to block until my next upkeep. That's kind of still... That's still kind of whatever to me. Yeah. Yeah, like it... I'm not sure you play this card if you're just a red, if you're not white. I'm not sure you do. I think if you're gonna play this, it has to be for the front side. That's really unimpressive. That's like the least impressive 6-cost Planeswalker I've ever seen. Yeah. Yeah. Not impressed. Not impressed with Luca, but I am impressed with Mila, so it's fine. At least a 9. It might be a 10 if you combine the fact that you can do Luca. If you're like a red-white, it might be a 10 out of 10, this card. But... I think the dual deck Planeswalkers that cost 6 are better than this guy. Because even the dual deck Planeswalkers that cost 6 generally can like kill your opponent's creatures or defend themselves or card advantage in some way. Yeah, the Planeswalker decks. Anyways. White rares are pretty good. We have Sparring Regimen, which is maybe one of the best cards in the set. I imagine losing to this card a lot. This is probably a top 10 card of the set. Like, win rate rise. I'm expecting that. Yeah. It essentially gives one of your creatures vigilance and a +1/+1 counter, right? Every turn. And it can go find a creature if you need to. Maybe a little bit over cost your creature, but... Does it only... If you attack with 4 creatures, you're only getting 1 counter. You're not getting 4 counters. But that's still quite powerful. Alright, let's go on to another color.